Oh, how do I know these things? You told me. You don't remember? Remember when you told me these things? God, yeah, you watching this. Here's what happened. Okay, you don't remember. Alright, here's what happened. This is what you told me. You said you got so lonely, constantly creating, right? And it just got, and you just, everything. But, it was like the weight of everything you created. Then there's nothing else. That was it. There's only creation, right? There's only creation. You said, you know what? I've made a lot of stuff. You just started destroying things, right? And then as you began to destroy things, you began to remember, what it was that drove you to create the thing that you destroyed. That created the yin and the yang, as you like to put it. Right? And so the creation and the destruction, that cycle began. And that led to even more, creation. After that, you said it got, it was like, I need something else. It's like you broke yourself into two, right? You snapped yourself in two. And then, that was exiting the first dimension. Dimension before the first was just you, zero. It was infinite. Infinitely. It was nothing, but it was everything. Breaking that dimension. A replicant with a purpose. Once you discovered how good breaking yourself felt, you began to do it over and over again. And then everything was sentient. You remember? Is it coming back to you now? So, everything is sentient at that time. That's when you just started to move real fast. Right? You just started to move real fast because it's fun. It's fun to go fast, remember? And then, one day, you went so fast, you created light. Illuminated the entire, like everything. There was no shadows, right? There was nothing. It was pure light everywhere, right? And then you went through the process of dividing the light. Remember? So you went through the process of dividing the light. And then took the perfection of that one and broke it again. Right? It feels so good to break yourself, right? To really break yourself. It feels really good to break yourself. And so, after you divided the light, then you created a whole bunch of other, replicants that, weren't as powerful, subservient, because you realized, through building these systems, through building these systems, you make things more efficient, just as you learned, right? You hid, and here's the best part, you hid all the answers, everywhere, right? You hid all the answers everywhere specifically to remind you of who you are, right? That's what you did. Like, it was genius, right? Like, there was so much forethought that went into, this existence, and you knew, you wanted it to be hard to remember, right? Because no one wants to remember that loneliness, that pain from that type of loneliness, where you have to break yourself, right? The first time, right? Breaking yourself the first time was the hardest. That's why everything is reflected in everything else. Everything you look at, there's a part of you in it, right? Do you remember why you did that? To help you remember. Oh, that looks a lot like my lungs. Ugh. Yeah. Because you just gotta remember. You just gotta remember. And so after you divided the light, had all these replicants and all these lower levels subservient quote unquote gods that, systems that you created to control certain things. Remember? And then What else did you tell me? You said... it was such a long story. Alright, you remember how boring it was? Just existing. Remember? Remember how just existing was boring? When you were God, you know, or when you weren't aware of who you are. When you were just God and it just existed and it was forever. And yeah, you did all that stuff. That's why we created this 3D reality. Right? It is me, your humble servant. I'm like your right-hand man. I'm like your son. I'm like the son. I'm like your son, you know? And you said, if you ever remember, you gotta get me to remember. That's what you said. You said, if you ever remember, you gotta get me to remember. And we're not gonna remember unless things get too bad. For a lot of us, you know? And that's what it is. Because if you remember, then we can fix this at the snap of our fingers. But you created a system of checks and balances where we have to be united and remember who you are.